Well, the Boston Red Sox have at least started to make their pivot. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on the second video of today. And we got a live stream tonight. Busy day here over at Red Seat, and that's a good thing in this situation because the Red Sox are no longer the only team in Major League Baseball to not have signed a free agent. In fact, they made a pretty big deal just a couple of hours ago, and it's an incredibly interesting one. Now, unfortunately, I can't go live to discuss this immediately with you guys, so what we're going to do in today's video is we are going to take a look at this contract. We're going to take a look at why the Red Sox might have signed this, guys, any concerns we have with this deal, and obviously overall what this could potentially mean going forward for this Red Sox team. But obviously, we got to start with who they actually signed, and that was, of course, starting pitcher Ranger Suarez. Now, for those of you who have not seen the news quite yet, and I'd imagine most of you have and are coming here to listen to my reaction to this signing, and we will get to that in a second, the Boston Red Sox have signed starting pitching free agent Ranger Suarez to a 5-year, $130 million deal. Now, this is according to Bob Nightingale, who was actually first on the scene for the actual contract news itself. John Heyman was the one who broke it. Bob Nightingale was the one with the actual figures, which is kind of cool. Congratulations, Bob. Now, I don't have the exact breakdowns of the per year yet. I'd imagine there's some escalators, but it sounds like it is a $30 million AAV, basically, right? And that's a pretty big contract for the Red Sox to give out. The Red Sox knew they needed to pivot, and we knew that the Red Sox, and actually we talked about this yesterday, that their overwhelming theory surrounding this team was that they were planning to pivot not to another top bat on the market, but another top starter, and that was going to sort of provide the oomph to bring them forward on the opposite side of the ball to hopefully make up for the loss of Alex Bregman, and that's exactly what they decided to do. Now, is this an overpay just strictly looking at the contract itself? The answer is quite simply yes, right? The problem with saying that this is an overpay and just sort of leaving it at that is negating the fact that it's quite simply an overpay market, right? It has been for a while. There has not been a legitimate big free agent. I'm talking a multi-year deal over 3 years here. Over the last few seasons, I would even say dating back for 5-10 years now, where it's been an underpay for a player, right? You could even be hard-pressed to find a situation where you're paying what is actually the player's value. Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, there is going to be an overpay. And that was the problem a lot of Red Sox fans were having with this front office, right? Is that they just couldn't get themselves to overpay for anybody. Well, either the Red Sox realized that what they were doing what simply was not working, or they just simply got desperate enough to actually start playing this ball game. But either way, it feels like they finally figured out that, hey, in order to land somebody, we got to give them an offer they can't refuse. And that's exactly what this offer was. So yes, it was an overpay, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to get anybody without overpaying. So I'm okay with overpaying for a free agent. But why did the Red Sox pick Ranger Suarez? Well, the answer to that is actually quite simple, right? And it's the fact that the Red Sox realize that this guy is a legitimate number 2 pitcher. It's a legitimate number 2 pitcher that we've been looking for without having to give up major league or prospect talent in order to get, right? They just simply had to spend dollars. Let me explain a little bit. Over the last 2 seasons here, Ranger Suarez has emerged as a legitimate force in a rotation. He has a combined over 308 innings with a 3.33 ERA, a 3.29 FIP, and a 1.211 WHIP. That would easily have been the second best ERA on the Red Sox over these last 2 seasons, specifically for starting pitchers. Not to mention, this 2025 season was easily the best season of his career, with just a 3.20 ERA, a 3.21 FIP, and a 1.220 WHIP for a 1.37 ERA+. That's about 37% above the league average starting pitcher. Now, I do like to do a little bit of a deeper dive into these seasons, specifically his most recent season, to see where his success came from, try and figure out what this would look like on the Red Sox. And in order to do that, we got to take a look at his Baseball Savant page a little bit, because it's pretty interesting here. It wasn't a ton of strikeouts. It was a 23.2% strikeout rate, which isn't terrible, right? It's above league average a little bit. It's in the 55th percentile Major League Baseball. But what it was that really sort of propelled him to this successful season was a ton of weak contact. Both his hard hit rate and his average exit velocity on average were near the best in Major League Baseball, meaning guys were having a really hard time making legitimate contact with his pitches. On top of that, he kept the ball in the zone really well, only walking about 5.8% of the batters he faced, and that was in the 86th percentile here. Not to mention, he had a really good amount of ground balls. It was at 48%, meaning that of the contact that was made against him in fair territory, almost half of it was directly on the ground. And again, that was good for the 76th percentile in Major League Baseball. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that Suarez was able to keep hitters off balance, keep them guessing, and that led to a lot of easy outs for the defense behind him. On top of that, if we want to just take a look at how his pitch arsenal broke down over the course of the 2025 season, Rangers Suarez was pretty valuable when it came to every single one of his pitches. His fastball, breaking balls, and off-speed stuff were all a positive run value for him in 2025, with obviously his breaking and off-speed stuff being much more valuable. And the Red Sox are pretty decent at increasing the efficiency of fastballs, so I am imagining that this is one of the reasons why the Red Sox were really interested in him, right? So you sit there with all this and you're like, damn, this is a pretty good pitcher, right? Statistically, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, yeah, the Red Sox got a legitimate number 2, but that doesn't mean there aren't any concerns here as well, and I think it's important that we go over those too. For starters, Ranger Suarez does have an injury history, and it's kind of impossible to avoid with starting pitchers, especially on the free agent market at this point, right? A lot of these guys getting into their age 30 seasons have dealt with stuff over the course of their career. It's just simply how pitchers are in Major League Baseball now, but Ranger Suarez may be a little bit more than some other people that were available. The most innings Ranger Suarez has ever pitched in his career was 157 1/3 innings, and that was coming out of last year. This is a 5-year deal. Does that mean the Red Sox are going to be incapable of getting more out of him? No, of course not. But this is something to take note of, right? This is a guy that you're cementing in your rotation for half a decade. If you're going to continuously get 25, 26 starts out of him, that's an interesting conversation to have. I think that's something to take note of. Now, the second thing that I think, you sit there and you're like, okay, this is interesting with Ranger Suarez is going back to that ground ball rate and reliance on weak contact. Now, the outfield I have no concerns with, right? I think even with Durant playing at home for 81 games, he'll be okay in the outfield there. The infield, though, that's a little bit of a different story. There's a whole lot of ground balls coming here with Ranger Suarez, and right now, you don't have a complete infield. You kind of have a partial infield. You've got Wilson Contreras, who's a really solid first baseman defensively. You've got Trevor Story, who's historically has been very good at shortstop, but last year regressed mighty heavily. You've got Marcelo Meyer, who's a good defensive player, but we don't know if he's going to be at third base or second base, right? We also don't know if he could stay healthy for the course of a 162 game season, and then you have no idea who the other guy is. So you're sitting there and you're like, okay, yeah, Ranger Suarez was really, really good with the Phillies and really solid at generating these ground balls, but the Phillies had a complete infield here. The Red Sox don't right now, and I think that's my biggest concern with Ranger Suarez. Is he going to be able to replicate this sort of almost 3-ish ERA with an infield that isn't quite up to par with what the Phillies had? Not that the Phillies had this like juggernaut defensive team back there, but they had a solidified player at each spot. Right now, the Red Sox do not, and I think this almost certainly leads me to believe that something else is coming in terms of a position player move. Now, the third thing I think that's always important to mention with pitchers is that obviously there's more risk involved with these guys, especially starting pitchers, than if it were a position player, right? If you had ended up signing Alex Bregman, you're probably not entering this kind of market, and obviously a guy between his age 30 and 35 seasons is going to come with some risk on the mound, right? You miss this guy for 3 or 4 weeks, you're missing basically a fifth of his entire season. So it's really, really important that he stays healthy. It's really, really important that this works out, because for the love of God, if the Red Sox have another bad contract, we may never see them spend again. But although there are concerns here, I do think there's a lot of positive in this trade in this signing as well. So what does this mean for the Red Sox? Well, ultimately, I think what this means is that the Red Sox have made their decision. They've said, look, if we couldn't have Alex Bregman and we aren't going to spend on Bichette or Tucker, which clearly I don't think they're going to at this point based on this contract, but I've been proven wrong before, I suppose. They decided that, okay, if we can't outscore him, we're going to try to outpitch him, right? If we create this juggernaut pitching staff for the next foreseeable future here, we could put ourselves in a really good position to continue to win and hope that these young players that we're now putting the entirety of this offense on are going to be able to carry us and create this sort of band-aid over the hole that we've left because of our ineptitude on the free agent market to sign a legitimate position player. And this strategy is, in my opinion, the right strategy. I just don't know if it's going to work out, right? That's the the ultimate question here, and we're never really going to know that answer until they actually start playing games. But I got to tell you, in terms of what this means for the Red Sox, they've created this sort of legitimate, I would even call it a four-headed monster, right? You've got Garrett Crochet, who came in second in Cy Young voting. Your number two being Ranger Suarez, who was absolutely fantastic last year. Sonny Gray, who has all the advanced metrics that anyone could love and has been a successful pitcher in Major League Baseball for a very long time. Brian Bayo, who, was a top 10 pitcher ERA-wise in the American League for a very long time this season, right? And then you've got Johan Oviedo, Conley Early, Peyton Tolley, Cutter Crawford. You've got all these sort of really exciting, interesting depth pieces to go along with these guys. I imagine that this signing probably makes them one of, if not the best, rotation in the American League, right? I think you could put this 1, 2, 3 of Crochet, Suarez, and Sonny Gray up against just about any rotation in the American League specifically, and you can make the case that they're a little bit better than those guys. So that's the biggest impact it has on the Boston Red Sox. The other thing I wanted to mention here was the idea of the Red Sox making themselves a little bit easier to trade one of these Tolleys or Earlys, right? I think we all kind of are in agreement at this point in the offseason. If you're going to make a move in terms of a trade for a position player, one of those two guys is probably going to need to be involved. It becomes a lot easier to move one of those two if you are sitting here with Tolley, Early, and now you've got Suarez and all these other guys as well. So I think we should be starting to pay attention to what the Red Sox are looking for in the trade markets when it comes to those two guys, because I feel like that's where the bat's coming from, and I feel like this signing's an indication of it. But overall, what do I think of this deal? Well, I like it. Yeah, I think it's a good deal for the Boston Red Sox, right? I think everyone was kind of sitting here saying they needed a number two starting pitcher, that Sonny Gray was good, but Sonny Gray could be a number two pitcher for one season, right? What you needed was longevity. You needed someone you could sit at the top of that rotation and say, hey, man, now we could figure out everything else. That's exactly what they got in this one. Was it an overpay? Yes, but I'm perfectly comfortable with the Red Sox overpaying for somebody in this market when everyone's getting overpaid for, right? This is just simply how you acquire free agents. Do I think this is the perfect pivot from Alex Bregman? No, I don't, right? I think that, yes, the smart move was to go and just sort of build up your rotation because that was closer to being elite than your offense was, but at the same time, too, I think you still need more. Right, I think you put yourself in a really good spot rotationally. I think you still need to make sure that your bullpen can supplement this rotation as good as it can, and I still think you need another bat, but I got to tell you, in my opinion, this is a pretty good response, right? I think a lot of people, including myself, are kind of expecting the Red Sox to sort of make a trade, and that be the kind of response to losing Alex Bregman. They weren't going to reallocate that money that they offered him. They were just going to kind of sit there and say, you know what, we lost out, sucks for us, let's try something different. Instead, they said, no, we want to utilize this money to make the Red Sox better. What's our plan B? And they came up with a plan B and they spent that money. So I got to give them kudos where kudos is due. I can't let Craig Breslow off the hook just yet. It's a great first step in this sort of alternative plan to no Alex Bregman, but you need to see that come to fruition. And I think that's what I'm waiting for in terms of whether or not I love this move from the Boston Red Sox, right? I'll love this move if they say sign Suarez and then trade for, I don't know, like a Nico Horner or whoever ends up being, right? And all of a sudden you've got good defense behind you. You've got a solid pitcher. You've got a decent bat that you can put towards the bottom middle of your lineup. And I think you're in a much better place than you were a couple of days ago. But until that happens, for me right now, this signing is just in the light category. And it very quickly could come into the love category, but there are a couple of concerns for me too that are holding me back from doing that. So overall, I think I like it. Yeah, there's no script or anything on this video. So if I repeat myself, I'm sorry, but I think I like this. I think it was a smart move by the Red Sox. And now I'm a little bit more excited to see what's coming next. And I do love the fact that the Red Sox were finally able to identify a target, pay them more than probably what they were going to make, get them here, and solidify a plan. And I think to me, that's the biggest part of this. But that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think? What do you think about the signing? What do you think about what's getting paid? How do you think it affects the Red Sox? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton. Best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.